It was a title that came in a vision, a dream, and it came almost complete. And it started as oil and water, Western and indigenous approaches to economy and ecology. And the pieces that came in later were community, because it seemed that, not in a Western Hegelian sense of a synthesis, but to really come together with economy and ecology, we had to create a community at the conference. And so that's how community came in. And then in dialogue with Nancy Maryboy, I expressed a concern to her that I didn't want this to become any kind of dichotomy or set it up as a polarization. So Nancy said, let's add, can they mix? Oil and water, can they mix? And that seemed very perfect to me, because I like the idea of posing things as a question, first of all. And it's a very powerful metaphor, not just for Western and indigenous ways of knowing, but also for human relations. And as was brought out in the course of this conference, I mean, even the physical characteristics of oil and water, they can mix in certain ways, but the ways that we really are seeking are the ways that they mix and support while maintaining the integrity of the difference. And that is perhaps the best way that we can mix Western and indigenous worldviews. There's a tendency in the West to always want to get to the meta level, and there's a subtle arrogance in that. There's books, The Theory of Everything. Sorry, Ken Wilber, but there's books. There's a whole school of thought that actually focuses on the theory of everything. There are quantum theorists looking for a grand unified theory to try to somehow mend the balance or the imbalance that's posited in quantum theory and relativity theory. And the way those kinds of theories are posed, we can never really heal them. And we have to be careful to not too quickly move to some kind of artificial feel-good partnership between Western worldviews and native worldviews, because they are so fundamentally different at the core, and very few people realize this. There is such a shallow understanding of indigenous worldviews, and most of that difference comes about because of language difference. In Western languages, everything is, and I say Indo-European languages, everything is top-heavy with nouns. And what do nouns do? Nouns stop the world. They categorize the world. And so the Western culture is even the best and well-intentioned people in Western culture who are seeking to heal ecological imbalances that they see are saddled with a language which is about separation. It's a subject-object view of the world. It's a noun-heavy view of the world. And nouns, we're just nounaholics. Whereas in the native languages, and this is true as far as I know for all indigenous languages, which seem to somehow emerge from the land, the knowledge and the sacred languages seem to emerge from the land. And that is a moving energy. It's a kinetic energy. And it's all about process and relationship. And this is where our organization has had the joy of finding some meeting ground between some of these quantum theorists who went inside an atom and found, hey, it's all process and relationship. It's all process and relationship. There are no longer any things inside an atom. But we need to move beyond thinking about an atom only, and realize that it's all process and relationship in the macro world also. And what is it inside an atom? It is spirit. But that spirit is moving through everything. It's not limited to the quantum world, which is as far as Western thought sometimes goes with it today, and thinking that this quantum world is very special and different. Well, really, that spirit is moving through everything. Everything. So oil and water is an amazing metaphor, and it's a rich metaphor. I mean, we are 70, 80% water. We start out, I think, 90%, and we keep getting more and more dense. We're moving more and more back toward Earth. But we have a relationship with water more or less equal with the planetary relationship with water. So that's a very, very beautiful thing. It's beautiful to be in connection with water. But inside a body, we also are in other relationships. We have bacterial relationships, which are, I think, 60% of our cells are made of bacteria, which comprises 3% of our body weight. What does it mean? How could we go around walking around in the West thinking that we're separate? We're completely connected at all times. You know, in our separation, in our false separation, our imagined separation from the natural world, because it is just an imagine, it's just an illusion. When we go there, it causes a lot of sadness. It causes alienation. You know, and it's very sad to me when people say things like, you know, I feel so alone, because we're never alone. Even the writers, I'm sure you've interviewed writers, artists, and we say that creation happens alone. It doesn't happen alone. Nothing would happen if it were really alone. You have to have spirit moving through, you know, and I don't know how many artists you've interviewed, but sometimes I chuckle listening to artists being interviewed about their own piece because it's really not theirs. Our artwork is not our artwork. You know, in native cultures, traditionally, I mean, this is very different today, but traditionally there was no word for art. And there was no word for art because art was simply an expression of the creative imagination of the cosmos that was integral to all of life. So it was done because it was necessary for balancing with creation. And that's how it emerged. And today it's different. You know, native designs have been, you know, there's all kinds of books about them and explanations, and it certainly is a word in Santa Fe, where we are right now, has the world's largest Indian market, where thousands and thousands of dollars are paid for artwork, which is very magnificent artwork. But it's a little bit removed from the way it was originally expressed. You know, so the Oil and Water Conference that we convened is about healing an artificial split between economy and ecology. Because we're all indigenous if we go back far enough in our history. And far enough in Western language, the words economy and ecology came from the same root. And they both come from the Greek oikos, and the eco part of it is speaking to taking care of house, being in balance. And so many of the wonderful speakers here are understanding from their own different viewpoints how we must reconnect with that larger economy, nature's economy, that larger spirit force that is what it's really all about, and how we can't focus on this little tiny, you know, result which we call the economy, which is only about this tiny, tiny manifestation of a greater spirit welling up that moves through. And it is possible. I'm optimistic that it's possible to have even what is called business to be aligned better with spirit, and to be aligned with the flow and the processing of nature. And if that happens, rather than trying to align with a shareholder report, that's given every quarter, amazing things can happen. I'm actually more optimistic than has been yet expressed in this conference, but we'll come forward. We have a beautiful speaker, Lynn Twist, coming next, who will give another twist on this. But really, if you think about it, I think at the beginning, when people create a business, they may think in the West that they're creating it because they're going to make a profit. I don't think that's ever the case. I really think that whatever drives humans to do something must be something that is some kind of spiritual connection that gets them kinetically moving to express themselves in the world. Now, if they become more aware of that and don't listen to the popular literature that says that business is all about profit, they can express their business in a way that will be in complement, in consonance of spirit with what is unfolding in the natural world, you know, and if they do that, they'll actually be successful even in that tiny ripple effect, monetary effect as well, if they're in tune with the spirit that's unfolding, and they're in tune with what is necessary for the time. Now, some of our businesses that we think are just corporate evil or something, we're not always that way. And as a matter of fact, you know, sometimes they became successful exactly because they were in tune with some spirit. You'd be surprised. I mean, you know, you probably think of Coors Beer, as, for instance, or Coors Company as one that's just, yeah, it's a big corporate company, you know, no spirit or something. Well, you know, in 1952, before they were a corporation, they decided to make all of their products recyclable. So they were on the forefront of aluminum recycling, and they started a ceramics company, you know, and that was Coors Tech, which is now one of the largest ceramics companies in the world. But they did not, you know, they didn't waste. They didn't have waste products. As Ralph Metzner said, there is no waste anyway. There is no away. You know, you can't throw anything away. So if you have a waste product, and you know, that what that really means is that people aren't being conscious of the full cycle. You know, so it's very, very important. These are very complicated issues. I mean, you can't, but basically there is change. There is a little bit more social responsibility happening in a grassroots level. And those companies can be supported. The consumers, which is a very tricky word, but we're all consumers unless we, you know, of something, they can support, and then they make for change. And then that has to be watched very carefully, because there's a lot of stuff going on along there now. Because consumers changed, we now have Walmart going organic. That doesn't mean that's all perfect. but you know, it means that there's greater consciousness for organic food. But as has been brought out in this conference, eventually we're going to have to come back to the land. Eventually there's a shift happening from the urbanization of this planet, and we're going to have to come back to the land and listen to the land herself. And there, we're going to have a change. And in that land, we will have farming that will be re-honored, and farmers that will be understood for the beautiful, honorable work they do. And the rural world will resurge. And it's absolutely necessary and actually inevitable.
That was very beautiful. Thank you. Very full. I know in a lot of, you know, a lot of the artwork that I do, I focus so much simply on the earth.